Hey there, YouTubers. This is Kevin from the Super Fun Time Show. And today, we're going to talk about the latest episode of Survivor 44. This is a huge episode. Obviously, it is one of the most entertaining ones that we've ever had at this point, because it's getting down to the nitty-gritty. This is an episode where we had 7 people left. There is a lot on the line at this point as we just trudge toward the finale here. It's a lot of good stuff that's really happening. You got the Tika 3 that are totally together at this point. You got Carson, you got Jam Jam, you got Carolyn sticking it there. Well, you got the other ones kind of floating along. You got Danny, who's a big threat, but he's there just purely with Heidi from Soka. And you have Jamie and you have Lauren just chilling there as well. So will these 4 get together and go after the Tika 3? Is the question a lot of people were asking. So for this episode, we're going to talk about some of the biggest things that happened, some things I like the most, and some of the things that maybe were a little bit of a down. But before we get into the video, make sure you hit the subscribe button to this channel so you have an opportunity to win a buff. I just did a buff giveaway, and for anyone who's looking to find out who won said Ratu buff, it is subscriber Ashley Wilson to the channel. Ashley, congratulations on winning a beautiful Ratu buff. That is being sent to you, and if you want to win a buff just like the one Ashley won, well, not just like it, it's going to be from another season. Make sure you're a subscriber to this channel and just be a member of the US, the United States, and then you have a chance to win a cool buff. But getting into this episode, it was really fun. We got to see some really fun stuff from Jam Jam like we normally do. It's kind of amazing. I remember going into the season, I thought there was no chance that Jam Jam was going to be around as long as he is. Not because of anything wrong with his personality. I thought the previews, they were showing like the best of Jam Jam, which was him talking about like pooping in the ocean. I thought that was going to be like the peak of Jam Jam. And I didn't think he would actually make it very far, but Jam Jam clearly has the most socially adept game in the show. Well, other than maybe Carson, who obviously is a massive threat at this point. So it's really impressive to see all of these folks around and living in relative harmony. But the negative is the episode really starts off with people not being happy, particularly Carolyn. Carolyn wasn't happy because she was left out of the Franny vote. Carolyn didn't want to vote for Franny, and Jam Jam and Carson knew that. So they left her out and totally in the cold. And Carolyn, being the emotional person that she is, which I think is a very good thing, although it's very questionable in a game like Survivor, she let him know it. She let him have it. She said, listen, I'm pissed that you did this to me. How could you do this to me? And then Jam Jam let her know real quick, like, hey, well, you did it to me earlier on. And Karen goes, that was different. I loved that whole sequence. I think it was especially important is that in the previews, they showed this little spat with Tika, but a lot of fans thought that maybe they would try to vote out Carolyn because of it. No chance. They're not going to vote her out, and Carolyn was going to vote them out over it because she's emotional in the moment, but she's very smart. She understands everything. There was no chance she was going to turn on Tika, to the point where she got it together and they were trying to plan the vote for the night. It looked like everyone was looking to possibly vote out either Jam Jam or Carson because they realized, Danny in particular, realized that one of the Tika probably need to leave at this point, which that was already an idea that Franny had like 2 votes ago, but Danny said it wasn't time, so it didn't happen, of course. Now, it looks like it's the perfect time for Danny. And they had the immunity challenge, which is last gasp. The one that I thought Danny was a shoo-in to win, because there's 3 or 4 yogis on the cast at this point. Jamie does a lot of yoga, and Carolyn does yoga, and Danny, his whole thing is breathe with Danny, learning about breath control. And last gasp is really about how you can manage the panic button internally as to whether or not you can last in the game. Although it does seem as though this time around, and maybe I'm just misreading it, it seems like the water was legitimately above the grate to the point where Danny couldn't stick his mouth or his nose out. So I don't know. It doesn't make sense to me why the water would be heavier on this side over this side. I don't know. But he ended up losing, and Jam Jam ended up winning, which actually is kind of brilliant. He couldn't hear that he had won the challenge, so he just kept going to the point where he was probably going to drown himself. I wonder if you're close enough. If you're competing against them and you know it's down to only you 2, could you like kick the leg of the person next to you to make them think that they had in fact won the challenge when they didn't, so they just come up over the grate and just trick them? Like, I don't know if you'd be allowed to do that. That'd be brilliant. Anyway, Jam Jam wins immunity. Really happy for him. Really fun moment because I'm sure Jam Jam thought he was probably never going to win an individual immunity. Love that. That was a really awesome moment for Jam Jam. And he's arguably the biggest threat in the game, so that automatically took him out of the rotation. Now, Carson, that kind of left him exposed. And everyone seemed to get on the same page. They have to get rid of Carson. The only ones, obviously, were, well, actually, really just Carolyn. Jam Jam was like, well, if he's got to go, he's got to go. But Carolyn said, nope, I'm not doing that. she exposes her hidden immunity idol she's had since Tika, which I thought was a terrible idea. I was watching the episode and I went, no, Carolyn, don't do it. But she did it anyway because she loves Carson. And I have to say, Carson crying instantly when Carolyn said, I have an idol and I'm going to possibly use it on you. That really shows how good of a game Carson has and how in tune he is with everyone's emotion. And I have to say that's very impressive on his part. And it's no surprise that he's made it this far. In addition to him being on Rat 2 for a little while, that probably contributed to why the fact that his relationships are so solid. But that was a big piece of it. Now we go to Tribal Council, and the highlight moment, of course, is when the rest of the tribe is being kind of condescending to Carolyn about how she felt about things. And then Probst speaks up when she's already irritated and says, maybe a little bit of sleep, you'll see things differently. And then Carolyn gives a death stare to Probst in a way that I thought was amazing. And Probst is very intuitive. He's doing it for a long time. He said, wait, are you mad at me? Carolyn's like, yeah. And it just got a little bit awkward for a hot second, but it's not really that awkward when Carolyn's the one doing the talking and Probst is involved because they're going to navigate their way out of it. But it was glorious to see that all go down and to see Probst kind of look a little illusory in that moment. The fans are generally going to choose Carolyn's side. The only one that has a chance in popularity is probably Jam Jam. And Jam Jam would be looked at as an all-time player right now as a character if it wasn't for Carolyn. And he will. He'll go down as one of probably the most entertaining, most likable characters of all time, if I had to guess. But he's drowned out by Carolyn because she's just that unique and that good, which is amazing. But at Tribal Council, chances are pretty good they're going to vote for Carson. It's going to be Jamie, it's going to be Lauren, we're going to have Danny and Heidi. All four of them can vote for Carson. And if any shenanigans pop up, Heidi has a hidden immunity idol. Now, we go to the actual vote. They do their votes. Carolyn stands up and plays her idol, shocking most people. Even though I think Jam Jam he had a pretty good inkling Carolyn had that idol because I know that Jam Jam has asked Carolyn twice in this game already on camera if she had taken the Tika idol. And, she said no, but Jam Jam, I think, kind of knew. So anyway, she plays it for Carson. 2 votes go on Carson. Then 2 more votes go on Heidi. And then the third set of votes goes on to Danny, which is 3 votes total. And that means that Danny gets voted out of the game. The idol essentially was wasted. She didn't need to play it. In hindsight, of course. Now, going into it, I can understand why she did. But she did not need to do that because Jamie and Lauren had actually flipped and instead voted with the Tika 3 instead of against them. And this is where I get into a conundrum about whether or not that was a good play from Carolyn. Because she looked great. She had total agency. She made sure that vote was going to go the way she wanted to, which was Carson's not going anywhere. That was a Carolyn special. She wanted to make sure to everyone that was not happening. And she read it right. Carson was the target. So that was pretty dead on from that POV. But the question is, was it truly wasted because she didn't really block the majority votes? But did she somehow further her game anyway? Did she get the jury's respect by her using an idol that no one knew about at that point? Because I'm sure at this point, the way I see it, is that the players have not seen her as much of anything. When they were discussing breaking up the Tika 3, Carolyn wasn't mentioned. It was all about Carson and Jam Jam. And for good reason, they're 2 big targets. But Carolyn wasn't even on the radar. And I think, to her credit, her threat level has been really low for a player who's as smart as she is. But it's amazing. People can't read Carolyn. They can't understand Carolyn. And Carolyn reads them really well. It's pretty fascinating, actually. So maybe this helped gain some respect in that regard. Carolyn's not terrible in challenges. Early on, it was a little questionable, but she's gotten better, in my opinion. And I think now that people are kind of looking at her, I mean, based on the previews, it looks like she may be the one that goes. But I don't think that's true. I think actually, when we watch the episode, they're going to talk about it, but ultimately they're going to say, well, Carson's a bigger threat, or Jam Jam's a bigger threat. Because they are. So everyone should be still looking at one of them. And once it gets to the final 4 or so, I hope Carolyn wins an immunity. I don't see it happening, but she could. She absolutely could. If she does, great. She's going to get to the finals and the opportunity to say why she's been hiding in plain sight, looking at you, Gabler, this whole time, and is worthy of winning the game. And even if she doesn't, I don't really see a scenario at the final 4 where people don't take Carolyn to the finals. No matter what, it looks like Carolyn's going to make it to the finals, which makes me really happy unless she goes out in next vote. I don't think that'll be the case. I think next episode, Heidi is the one who's primed to make the big move. Because right now it's 3-3. Like, they say that Tika has a numbers advantage, which they do not. It is right now 2 Ratu and 1 former Soka. So we got Heidi, Jamie, and Lauren who can vote as a block against Jam Jam, Carson, and Carolyn. And by far the biggest threats are Carson and Jam Jam. All they have to do is figure out who the Tika 3 are going to vote for, even if they're going to try to vote out Carolyn. All Heidi needs to do is idle out whoever they want. Next episode may be Carson or Jam Jam, genuinely. And it'll be because of Heidi. So make sure to pay attention to that in this next episode, because I don't think Heidi's going to be silly enough to not understand the playing field, the landscape. I think she does. And that idol's only good for 2 more votes, 6 and 5. After that, it's useless. So look out for Heidi to make a big move. Also, objectively, when Danny got voted out, him doing the Robert De Niro face was really funny. He starts doing the Robert De Niro impression. It would have been way funnier if he didn't explain it, in my opinion. But it still was really funny. The jury thought it was funny, and Jeff Probst was trying so hard not to laugh his head off about that. So I got to give Danny credit. Danny's a player that I think a lot of people really soured on toward the end, but objectively as a character in the game, really good character. What did you think of the episode? Did you think it was really awesome? Did you think it was really cool? I mean, I love the reaction from the stuff with Jeff Probst and Carolyn, which is always great. And we got to see a little bit of like Carolyn, a little piece of lobster. And it was just like, we got to see more camp life. And with the Survivor episodes expanding to 90 minutes from this point on, hopefully we get to see more of camp life. But what concerns me is that there's probably still going to be more twists and advantages that we didn't like. This will just give more time to camp life in addition to those wacky advantages. So I'm a little bittersweet about it, admittedly, but ultimately I think more Survivor is a good thing. Also, really exciting stuff. I don't know if anyone's going to be in New York City for the Bryce and Wen New York City finale party. I'm going to be there. There's a lot of cool Survivors that are going to be there at that time. I've never been to one of these things, but it's going to be pretty cool. I'm sure it's in Brooklyn. Get to hang out with some of the folks that we've interviewed on the channel. Carla Cruz Godoy is going to be there. The Allie Gabler, Mike Gabler is going to be there. Tons of other people, of course, Wendell, Eliza. Honestly, a lot of the Survivor 43 cast is going to be there. And I love Survivor 43. So it's going to be a really fun time, or a super fun time. You all have an amazing day, everyone. You take care. And remember, I have